I just want to show you our latest poll of polls. This is the averaging of the most recent national polls. As we said in the last block, this race has settled a bit over the past few days. Settled with a Clinton lead, averaging some polls it's 4, some polls it's 5, some polls it's 2. If you average them all out, a 3-point national lead for Hillary Clinton heading into the final days. Why is that significant? I want to drop this down here. I want to go back in time to 2012. Let me just move this over a little bit and shrink it. Remember that lead? Let's pop this up here. Okay, back in 2012, on this day, the Sunday before the election, President Obama led Mitt Romney by 1 point. He won the election by 4 points. On this day in 2004, the last time the Republicans won the White House, George W. Bush led by 2 points over John Kerry. He won the election by 3 points. So usually, if you're ahead going into the election, you win the election. Not always, but if you're ahead by a healthy margin going in, you tend to win it. Obama's campaign obviously had an organizational strength. That's one thing you look at. You see a more stable race heading into the final days. Here's one of the reasons I say that. The pollsters have been, as I said, having turbulence in the data. They feel a lot more settled now. This is the NBC Wall Street Journal poll that came out today. Donald Trump leads among men, but Hillary Clinton has a big lead, 13 points among women. Women will be 53 or 54% of the electorate on Tuesday. That's a big issue. Also, in some states already, based on early voting, Florida included, they think the electorate will be more diverse this time in some states, including Florida, than 2012. Look at this. Hillary Clinton has a 75-point advantage among African Americans, a 42-point advantage among Latinos. If the electorate is more diverse, Donald Trump's edge among whites won't be enough. We'll see what happens. Now, in some states, this helps more than others, but Hillary Clinton right now, if you look at the construct of the electorate, if it is more diverse than 2012, that's a path for a Clinton victory there, Anderson. There are some things in the data that supports Donald Trump, but if you look at those, the Latinos, the women, the African Americans, that is a coalition that if they turn out, is favorable to Clinton.
We've spent a lot of time in recent weeks and months talking about the education gap among white voters. How does that look at the end, and why does it matter so much?
It's very significant. It's different in different states, but let's look at those numbers. If you bring them up, whites with a college degree, Hillary Clinton, 51 to 41, a 10-point lead over Donald Trump. This is, again, NBC Wall Street Journal data. 10-point lead there. This is a constituency Mitt Romney won 4 years ago, as he lost the race for the White House. So it is very significant for Hillary Clinton to have that constituency. Donald Trump, wow, look at this lopsided 2-to-1 lead among white voters without a college degree. Why does that matter? Well, Donald Trump's path to victory, there's a lot of skepticism about it, but where is Donald Trump in these final days? As Jeffrey noted, Pennsylvania, he's trying in Michigan. He made a play in Minnesota, today. That state hasn't gone Republican since the 1970s. But if Donald Trump is to succeed, it's with those white working class voters across the Rust Belt. So those numbers are good for him. But those college educated, especially women, they live in the Philadelphia suburbs. They live in the Research Triangle in North Carolina. They live in the Cleveland suburbs. They live in the Columbus suburbs. That is part of the coalition Clinton needs to win the big battleground.
So then the race for 270, what's the count at this point? As we
Let's switch maps and take a peek. This is where we are right now. This is where CNN officially has it, 268 to 204 heading into the final days. But if you talk to even smart Republicans out in the state of Nevada, they think the early voting out there is going to take that state Democratic. That would be enough to put Hillary Clinton across the finish line, and that's where Donald Trump has the issue. Even if Donald Trump ran the board in these other states, Arizona, Florida, North Carolina, and New Hampshire, even if he won the rest of our toss-ups, he's still short. And remember, the Clinton campaign thinks, Anderson, they feel strong that they can win down here and they can win down here. Even if they win one of those two, it gets Donald Trump's math very, very complicated, which is why in these final days, Kellyanne Conway told you they have the wind at their back. They're also looking for targets, which is why he's trying to get the 20 in Jeffrey Lord's Pennsylvania. He's trying to get the 16 out in Michigan. He's trying to get the 10 out here in Minnesota. Is there any data that shows Donald Trump ahead in these states? No. Is there data that shows it closer? Yes. And so he's going into these states in the last few days trying to steal something blue, and he might need 2 or 3 of them.
All right. John, stay with us. I want to bring the band back together. Joining us also is CNN chief political correspondent Dana Bash. You were joining us before, though, weren't you?
I'm always with you.
She's like the Holy Spirit.
So, Dana, you see the numbers, you see the map, 48 hours left. How confident is the Clinton campaign at this point?
They're confident. They're cautiously confident, I would say. And privately, the Trump campaign and Republicans who are looking at those numbers, who are looking at their own data modeling, most importantly, say that they wish they had another week because the wind had been at Donald Trump's back, and they felt that if they had another week, maybe 2, that it could have been doable in a lot of those key blue states to turn them red.
The Republicans say, the Trump people will say that on all these races, it's within the margin of error. And that's why, as John was pointing out, they're going to all of these states because they have to. If there's a shot at it, they have to take it. Internally, the Clinton people in some of these states say, don't be ridiculous. We're ahead in these states. But they want to be sure. They want to be sure because all they need to get to is 270. They don't care about anything above that, right?
But in your experience, the three I look at the most, New Hampshire, Michigan, Pennsylvania, because no early voting. Now, we know the campaign has done a very good job in the states with early voting, but we know Donald Trump also has pretty good support in those states. So in those states where it's going to be settled on game day.
Yes. No, I mean, look, I think that's one of the reasons why they're going to shore up those states, because there is no early voting there. Democrats tend to benefit from early voting. We should keep in mind that New Hampshire may be essential for Donald Trump, but it's a small prize. It doesn't solve his big problem. I think the most significant thing that's happened in the past few days is the early vote out of Florida.
Yeah.
Because if he can't win those 29 votes, I honestly don't see a viable path for him.
So for
Every
you,
scenario,
if he doesn't win Florida, that's it.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean,
It's 29. You have to do Michigan, Minnesota, and New Hampshire. That's 30. It's just you're asking.
I'm sorry, Dan. We've said this many times, but it's worth saying one more time. The fact is, we are becoming a more diverse country. Each election, the Republican Party was right after 2012 when they said we need to have an outreach to Hispanic Americans. They went the other way in this direction, and Donald Trump could pay a very big price for that.
Well, I was just going to say, to your point about the early vote in Florida, a big reason why Democrats are heartened by that is because there's so much of a Latino vote, and the fact is that it's gotten even bigger in Florida, and I think what is sort of rich or ironic, or you pick how you want to describe it, the fact that Hillary Clinton might really win a state like Florida, maybe some others, probably in Nevada, with the Latino vote, given where this campaign started, Donald Trump's campaign started.
Well, let me add one thing. The thing that I think is most almost astonishing is there is privately a genuine belief among folks on the Democratic side that she could make a push in Arizona at the end because of the aggressive early voting among Hispanic voters.
And Hispanic voters are not voting on the email issue. And we've been talking about that all night. They're voting on the wall. They're voting on immigration. And she's going to, if she were to win Florida, it would be a very different coalition from an Obama coalition. And that's what we may see forming in this election if she does win in the Southwest.
I think it's time to start talking about the Hillary Clinton coalition.
Right.
Because it's a slightly different configuration.
Right.
And I think that one of the things that's remarkable is how we've been hearing this promises, these rumblings, someday the Latinos are going to, and I think it's actually happening, and I think it's actually going to shock Democrats as much as Republicans that this thing is finally happening.
I think we need to pause for a second. Instead of lumping all Hispanics into the Hillary Clinton pot, we should step back. The place we've seen a dramatic increase to the tune of 5% increase in Hispanic voters is Florida. And Nate Cohn over at the New York Times, when the poll was published that Trump was winning by 4 points in Florida, had a sub-headline that says Cubans return home to Donald Trump, because he had found that there was a 20-point shift in Cuban voters back to Donald Trump just from September because Barack Obama didn't defend the embargo at the United Nations. I think we're underestimating the fact that Cubans have come home to Trump.
I think you're living in the past.
Well, but even if that's true, there aren't as many of them anymore. Even if you're exactly right, the growth has been Puerto Ricans coming in, and then Mexicans, Central South Latin Americans too. That's been the dramatic growth. Even if that would be very helpful to Donald Trump if that happens. But especially you start at Tampa and just come across through Orlando, the growth up there has not been Cuban.
Paul, you agree? You're saying that
Cuban vote is way more complicated than it used to be. It is. There's still the 1959 generation that escaped Castro's communism, very, very Republican, very conservative. Then there's the Marielitos that came in the early 80s, late 70s. They're pretty Republican. Then there's the next generation, pretty progressive. Plus, Trump had a little hiccup when he was published accounts that he had perhaps extended business interests in Cuba or interests in forming a business in Cuba, and that could have violated the embargo itself. The Latino vote in South Florida some of the early returns, is setting all kinds of records, and they are not turning out for Donald Trump. In fact, Steve Shale, who ran the state for David Axelrod last time around, he texted me tonight, 73% of the Hispanics who had voted early so far were classified as low propensity voters. This is the most exciting thing for a campaign manager, right? Because like us four, we're pretty high propensity. Like it's the farmers of the hay in the barn. They have targeted the folks who they were most concerned about, least likely to vote, and gotten them out.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenal accomplishment for the Hillary campaign.
Tonight is the night to remember the unforgettable words of Tim Russert of 16 years ago. Florida, Florida, Florida. We have breaking news tonight about an important new tracking survey of early voters and likely voters in Florida. This is the first poll in Florida that includes actual early voters, how they have voted. So this poll is giving us a picture of the early voting results in Florida right now. And if we can get data like this for only one state, Florida is the state we want. Florida is, once again, the most important state on the electoral map because Democrats and Republicans all agree that Hillary Clinton has alternative routes to an electoral college victory that do not have to include winning Florida. But Donald Trump has no other way. It is virtually impossible to win the Electoral College for Donald Trump without Florida's 29 Electoral College votes. Florida is do or die for the Trump campaign, and Donald Trump's campaign schedule proves that. Donald Trump has 3 campaign events tomorrow in Florida. Hillary Clinton was in Florida today, but tomorrow she will be in Arizona trying to take a Republican state away from Donald Trump. The Clinton campaign is also purchasing TV ad time in Virginia, Colorado, and New Mexico, and Michigan, states where she is leading Donald Trump, but wants to prevent any tightening of the race in those states. But none of that will matter. None of it will matter. None of what's going on in any of the other battleground states will matter if Hillary Clinton wins Florida. Some observers have joked that Donald Trump seems to be running for president of Florida, but that's because Florida means everything to the Trump campaign, and I mean everything. And tomorrow morning, a new tracking survey of Florida voters conducted by Target Smart and the College of William and Mary will be released in full. That survey contains the most important news yet about the early vote in Florida. And joining us now with an advanced look at the data that will be fully released tomorrow is Tom Bonnier, the CEO of Target Smart, a political data firm. Tom, what are the basic results you're finding? What is the state of the race in Florida now with all the information you have?
Lawrence, so in our survey, and as you said, we're releasing the full results tomorrow, but we're excited to be here to share these results for the first time with anyone publicly. We see this race as a 8-point spread in favor of Secretary Clinton, 48-40, which really is challenging the conventional wisdom of what we've seen so far. I will say, in what we're seeing, as has been noted on your show and elsewhere on the network, a lot of the vote in Florida has already been cast and elsewhere. As of this morning, over 3.6 million votes have been cast. And so what's unique about this survey is our ability to actually poll people